Ladies and gentlemen, I am the American SpyFox. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Growing Up Francis Bean, the last episode. Yes, today we will be talking about the Isaiah Silva case. I want to give a shout out to Melissa M and to a Facebook group. Not quite sure exactly what the Facebook group name is, but it's something like Isaiah Silva Case Facebook group. A couple ladies who are running that group or participating in that group live in LA, have direct access to the Los Angeles courts, and they have been very closely following the Isaiah Silva case. They have given everyone new information that Isaiah Silva has lawyered up again. So just when I thought he was going to quietly walk away with the $6 million from Kurt's acoustic guitar, turns out I don't think he's done with Courtney Love. I think that lawsuit is proceeding. In November of this year, there is a status hearing. Now, what's a status hearing? That means that Courtney doesn't have to be there, Sam Lutfi doesn't have to be there, Isaiah doesn't have to be there, so nobody who was involved in the altercation. Only the attorneys. The attorneys will come, they will meet with a judge, and the judge will say, have you reached an agreement? Personally, I highly doubt an agreement will be reached, because then Courtney and Sam and all the other co-defendants would be admitting that they committed crimes. And then it could be bound over to criminal court. So I think they're going to fight this thing, and it will proceed into 2022, where they will have to appear during the trial. Second, let me clarify, I was ranting in the community post, as I'm sometimes known to do. If you listen, my stepsister is a psychiatrist. She works 60 to 70 hours a week. If you've ever known a doctor, they make a lot of money, but they also they practically live at their work, especially if they work in a mental hospital where the patients need a lot of care. I can't see a practicing doctor being able to run a YouTube channel. I don't see that being profitable for them. I don't see that even fitting into their schedule. Now, that's not to say they couldn't be retired or on a break or something, but when I see things like psychics saying that they're channeling Kurt Cobain from the grave, that upsets me. I'm a little superstitious, but not a lot stitious. I really don't think anybody's talking to Kurt Cobain, and when YouTubers trick people into believing they are, it's a sad state of affairs. Also, I don't believe, and you can have your own belief, your own opinion, I don't really believe these doctors who say that they can profile Kurt Cobain. Because I've talked to my stepsister about this, that's what she does, and she said, unless I had access to his close friends and family, his inner circle, I couldn't profile him. A celebrity acts a lot different while performing or in an interview or on stage, MTV clips, than they would with their close personal friends and family. Although those kinds of videos can be interesting, I don't put a lot of weight into it, right? Because they didn't know Kurt. They haven't talked to his mom, they haven't talked to his girlfriends, his close confidants. Now, if they had access to Kurt's family and friends and then profiled him, that would be a video I'd want to watch. So that's what I was getting at. I was just saying, just because someone says they're a doctor doesn't mean that they are. They very well might be. I don't know. I'm just saying, just because someone says they're a psychic doesn't mean that they're talking to dead people. And honestly, I'm not even quite sure why I'd put my opinion into that to begin with, because people are going to believe what they want to believe. And any of you who understand what I'm saying have already come to that conclusion on your own. So let's leave that to rest. Third, the very short clip that I just added to my channel was not meant to air dirty laundry or taunt anyone. In fact, it was a call. It was saying, I don't hold on to grudges. I don't want to hold on to grudges. When you hold on to anger in your heart, it only hurts you. And it was a call to Tom Grant saying, if you were around at the beginning of my channel, you know what I'm talking about. I still feel as though Tom owes a lot of people that interview, and I'm willing to let go of the past and let bygones be bygones if he is willing to do the interview. Because it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about him. It's about Kurt Cobain. And if he is willing, I'm totally up for making amends and doing an interview. If not, then all I'm saying is I tried and tried. I wanted him to do it in the beginning. I can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. I don't know exactly what I am, but I am a spiritual person. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in second chances. And the ball's in his court. That's what that video was about. When I said still waiting on that interview, that's what I meant. And let me add, if not with me, do it with somebody. Do it yourself. If you have any new information, let us know. It's not doing anybody any good just sitting in a safe somewhere. Find another YouTuber. Do an interview with them. We just want to see everything. We want to know that all the information is out in the open. Number 4, real quick before we get started with the case, since I'm already on the topic of Tom, I want to share with you guys something he shared with me that I don't think I've ever told anyone. After what happened to Isaiah Silva happened, Isaiah Silva contacted Tom Grant. Matter of fact, Tom told me that he went to Isaiah's mother's home, spoke with the mother and Isaiah. Isaiah wanted his help. But I believe, if my memory serves me correct, Tom said he no longer had a license or something, and he referred him to someone else. That tells you how serious this was and how much Isaiah Silva felt he needed protection and help, that he went to the one guy who's always called out Courtney. This is why I take the Isaiah Silva thing so seriously. I believe his story. I believe that what he says happened to him, and that he is supposed to be dead. As usual, you guys know me. I don't just believe things. I don't just read things and believe them. I'm not that naive. There has to be evidence, and this case is very well documented. We're going to go over it right now. Let's take off where we left off, and I will show you the evidence that what happened to Isaiah Silva really did happen. Wait. Before we get started, I forgot. I have 2 strange observances, just things that I've noticed about Frances that I'm wondering if anybody else has noticed. Number 1, Frances, originally her godmother was Rosemary Carroll. After Kurt's death, it was changed to Drew Barrymore. Has anyone ever noticed that Frances talks out the side of her mouth just like Drew Barrymore? If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Drew Barrymore in an interview and then watch Frances. It's just a little tiny weird detail I noticed. Another thing I noticed is Frances did this impromptu photo shoot at an airport where she's holding up a Dharma Bums book. If you watch my videos, or if you just follow Courtney Love, you know that over the years, Courtney has spun many different stories about how she met Kurt Cobain, and one of those stories is they met at a Dharma Bums show. I wonder if Courtney asked Frances to do this, or if Frances genuinely believes that that's how they met, and she's curious about the Dharma Bums because of that story. Just 2 strange observances that I couldn't fit anywhere else in the video. When we left off in Growing Up Frances Part 3, Frances Cobain had just proposed to Isaiah Silva, and they set an initial wedding date. That initial wedding date was October 30th, 2013. Frances is so in love and so excited that he said yes, that she goes on her Instagram account and she writes, "Getting to spend the rest of my life with my best friend makes me the luckiest woman in the world." And I don't know about you, but I think that was pretty cool of Frances. She is being a modern woman. She's not waiting around for her man to finally ask her to get married. She says, "Hey, I want to get married. Do you want to marry me?" However, they don't get married until much later, 2014, and it's even a year beyond that before the press announces it. They actually kept their wedding a secret. They got married in June 2014. The press doesn't even know that it happened until September 2015. Part of the reason was Courtney Love wasn't invited to the wedding, because we all know that if Courtney knew the wedding was going on, the whole world would know the wedding was going on. So why was the wedding date postponed so long, and why wasn't Courtney invited to the wedding once it did happen? There's good reason for that. During the engagement in 2012, Isaiah Silva discovers that Frances Bean has become addicted to drugs. Isaiah also discovers that it's her own mother providing the drug mule. Sam Lutfi is her drug supplier. Sam Lutfi is living with Courtney Love. So Isaiah says, "I don't want any secrets between us, and I don't think that it's good for your health to be doing these drugs. And Frances, wanting to save her relationship, comes clean. And she says, yes, I'll stop doing the drugs. I'll tell you everything. This is how later we would come to find emails back and forth between Frances Bean and Sam Lutfi talking about refilling the cookie jar. Matter of fact, there's even an email that Isaiah Silva provided to his original attorney where Frances tells Sam Lutfi that she'd be happy to pay for any expenses incurred during his trip to Mexico to buy illicit drugs and then get them back in Los Angeles for her. Frances is in love with Isaiah at this time and she doesn't want to lose him. So she shows him all the emails back and forth between her and her drug supplier Sam. Isaiah would hold on to these. And later, after the divorce and after what happened to him, he would provide them to his attorney as evidence to prove his story is real. So Frances comes clean and Isaiah forgives her and they work on mending their relationship. Isaiah would even put up a sign on the gate of their property saying, "No trespassers," with Sam Lutfi's name on it and Ross Butler's name on it. Ross Butler was also a confidant of Courtney's. He once said that Courtney even introduced him to key Hollywood players that helped him get his roles, such as the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why. Isaiah thinks he has everything under control. I've pushed the drug mules away. My woman is on my side. She wants to live a clean life. They set a new wedding date, and that wedding date was for June 29th, 2014. And this is what I meant when I said Isaiah realized it was the worst mistake of his life, helping Courtney and Frances mend their relationship. He knows that it's through her influence that Frances started doing these drugs, but he believes that once again Courtney is out of the picture, all of her little minions are out of the picture, and they're going to proceed with their relationship as he had always dreamed of. 6 months before the wedding, January 8th, 2014, so same year, just 6 months beforehand, Isaiah went to a storage facility with Frances to check out some of her father's belongings. Of course, his things would have to be under lock and key or people would be stealing them, and Isaiah immediately beelines it for the 1959 acoustic guitar used for the MTV Unplugged record. He sits down, he plays the guitar. Frances comes up to him. Now keep in mind that he just found out that his woman had been lying to him and living this whole different lifestyle behind his back, and she really wants to appease him. She wants Isaiah to love her like he did before he found out about the lie. She wants him to trust her again. She wants his forgiveness. And she says to Isaiah, "How would you like to have that guitar?" To his astonishment, he says, "Are you kidding? I would love to have this guitar." And she says, "Take it home with you. It's yours." Imagine the excitement. Imagine if someone just gave you not just Kurt Cobain's guitar, the MTV Unplugged guitar. It'd make you forget about a whole lot of shit, wouldn't it? Isaiah immediately takes pictures of it. He sends it out to all of his friends. "Look at what Frances gave to me. This is mine." That creates a record. One more piece of evidence that validates his story. Now you know the wedding is definitely on, and they do get married June 29th, 2014, but soon after the wedding, something happens that makes Isaiah realize Frances is back to her old ways, and she is communicating with Courtney and Sam Lutfi yet again. This time she would be using emojis and code to communicate with Lutfi, Ross Butler, and Courtney whenever she needed a new shipment of drugs dropped off on the property. They even had a spot that Ross Butler, who Isaiah thinks is just the golden guy who's on, an actor and he's got his shit together. He's actually the guy that's going on the property, dropping off the drugs behind the shrubs. He's the courier. November 2014, Isaiah and Frances and Arlo. Now, who's Arlo? Arlo is Francis's stepdaughter. Matter of fact, Francis loved playing the role of mother. She even told Arlo, Isaiah's 7-year-old daughter from a previous marriage with, I believe her name was Jessica Sullivan, to call her mother. Francis would even pay for Arlo to go to the same private school Francis went to. She even paid for the baby mama, Jessica Sullivan, bought Arlo's mother, so Isaiah's ex, bought Isaiah's ex a house closer to them on their Curson Avenue property so they didn't have to drive long distances each week to pick up or drop off Arlo. And you can say that, yeah, that's a terrific thing. Francis is being so generous, but it was more for Francis's comfort. She didn't like the long drives. So she just said, look, I'll just buy your baby mama a house close to us and then we don't have to spend our weekends on these long trips. But Francis does treat Arlo like it's her child, encourages Arlo to call her mom. That's kind of controversial itself. I know for you people out there who have been divorced, I surely wouldn't want my kids calling their stepdad dad, but none of my business, right? November 2014, Isaiah, Arlo, and Francis are on the bed watching TV together as a family, and Francis experiences a grand mal seizure. She falls off the bed. Isaiah calls 911. There is a transcript of this phone call. It was recorded. That recording has not been released to the public to my knowledge, or I'd play it for you. Isaiah spends 8 minutes on the phone with 911, and right before paramedics arrive, Francis stops breathing, starts turning blue. Isaiah had previously worked at a elementary school for kids with special needs, and he knew CPR. He repositions Francis to start giving her CPR when suddenly her eyes pop open and she gasps for air. Things like opiates and pills like Xanax and Klonopin do not mix, and they can cause seizures. Isaiah comes to find out that Francis is back to her old ways, and she has mixed these drugs that have caused her to almost die right in front of their 7-year-old daughter. It's sad to say, but a situation like this to Francis may have not been as alarming as it would be to the average person. After all, she grew up with Courtney Love as her mother, and this would have been the kind of situation that she herself would have been in when she was a child. Unfortunately, the cycle continues. The next day, Francis would wake up and message every single person she knows, friends and family alike, telling them, I love you, I'm lucky to be alive. From here on out, Francis's use would be a constant strain on their marriage. Francis was trying to live 2 lives. It seems as though Isaiah was into drinking here and there and maybe smoking a little pot, but he wasn't into the hardcore drugs that people like Lutfi and Love and Cobain were getting themselves wrapped up in. There is a constant strain on their marriage because of this use. By late 2015, Isaiah has exhausted all his resources, and he decides to reach out to Wendy O'Connor, Kurt Cobain's mother. He knows that Francis spent a lot of time with Wendy as a child. Francis has even told him that she looks at Wendy as more of a mother figure than she does Courtney. So he goes to Wendy for help. Wendy explains to him that Courtney's influence is tremendous over all the people in her life, and reportedly urges him to watch the movie Soaked in Bleach. Remember that this is coming from Isaiah Silva. Isaiah says that Wendy says he should watch Soaked in Bleach. Now, I didn't believe that. Not at first, because after all, Wendy partook in the movie, the documentary Montage of Heck, which depicts Kurt as a suicidal, depressed maniac, what Courtney wants us all to believe. And it wasn't until I got my hands on Dave Grohl's mother's book, Virginia Grohl's book, that she wrote about the parents of rock stars and what those rock stars were like as children. There is a very brief chapter where she interviews Wendy O'Connor, and what she tells us is Wendy was very upset with Montage of Heck that it depicted not only her but her son in the wrong way. Wendy even goes as far as to tell Virginia Grohl that she was tricked by Courtney and the producer of Montage of Heck into participating in something that is false, that she would have never participated in had she known what they were up to. Wendy told Isaiah, don't pay attention to Montage of Heck, pay attention to Soaked in Bleach. And it's sort of what she told Virginia Grohl as well. Only this time she knew her words were going to be printed in a book, and she leaves out the, oh, by the way, Soaked in Bleach is a more accurate depiction of what was going on. It's no secret that the Cobain family, minus Leland, who's now passed, is terrified of Courtney. And then I started thinking, Buzz Osborne was there too when Kurt was young, and he told us Montage of Heck is 90% BS. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe Wendy O'Connor really did tell Isaiah Silva to go watch Soaked in Bleach. Moving along into 2016, February 2016. This is the only part of Isaiah's story that troubles me. Frances disappears. Isaiah and Frances had been together since 2010. They had lived together for several years. They'd been married for 2 years, and she just leaves without any explanation, no text message, no note, nothing. Now, according to Isaiah Silva, he looked for Frances. He texted everybody he could think of, even her personal assistant, John Hamilton, and everybody says, we don't know where she is. Later, he says a week or two later, he finds a note from Frances Bean that explains her disappearance. Let's go ahead and read that note. Frances Bean Cobain. Isaiah, I love you. Please don't think of this as abandoning you or as cruel or crude. That's not my intention in the slightest. I simply want to be the best version of myself, and I feel like as scary as it is to live without this numbness, warm safety blanket, not having it will force me to evaluate my priorities and to be productive about who I know I am and illegible I know I can be. I feel I have been stuck in the same cycle of misery and the chaos and almost physical pain of wondering when, where, how, and the gnawing need that eats away at the pit of my stomach forces me to focus most of my energy on that and know in my heart of hearts within my truth that it's not healthy. It's essentially a death wish for me. I don't want to have a death wish. I need to have a lust for life, or I fear my soul's ambition will lose all it has to offer. I need to learn to love myself before illegible. The way Isaiah interprets this, and the way I think most any man who's in love would interpret it, is she is seeking help for her drug addiction and she needs some time on her own. I mean, the very first sentence says, I love you, I'm not abandoning you. Isaiah believes that Frances is probably in some private rehab. She's embarrassed. She doesn't want anybody to know about her predicament, and so she's keeping it a secret, even from him. He thinks that his wife is going to come home after she's better. The way she writes this note to him makes it sound like she wants to become a better person to be a better wife. But actually, it was a very, very childish way of Frances Bean saying, I want a divorce. I can't tell you that to your face, so I'm just going to run away. I would understand that kind of behavior if Frances was in an abusive relationship and she feared for her safety. But there is absolutely no evidence that Isaiah was ever abusive toward Frances, nor any accusations of abuse. In fact, Isaiah later reveals that there had been times Frances had struck him. Again, behavior she learned from her mother. Here's my opinion. I find it strange that Isaiah Silva never went to the police and filed a missing persons report. He had been living with this woman for years. They are married, and he says in his own words, it's a week or two before he finds this note. He never once goes to the LAPD and says, hey, my wife is not only famous, she's missing. I don't know where she is. I have trouble with that part of the story. It almost seems like Isaiah was just at the end of his ropes too, and he didn't much care that Frances was gone because he was sick of dealing with the constant drug use. John Hamilton is Frances's assistant. Now, just my opinion, I find it a little strange that someone without a job needs an assistant. But I'm not rich, I'm not a celebrity. This is a lifestyle that they are accustomed to. Most celebrities don't even have a driver's license. Somebody is there to take care of their every need. They put them on a payroll. A lot of it, believe it or not, is positive reinforcement. Being in the limelight, being written about. Sometimes journalists will write things that aren't true, make up things to make you look bad. That would be very stressful. And celebrities need someone in their corner that gives them positive reinforcement. Oh, fuck that journalist. They don't know you. They don't know what they're talking about. You're a great person. You know what I mean? And they will pay people just to brown nose, just to ass kiss, to drive them around, to be their friend. John Hamilton, in my opinion, needed his butt kicked. If that was my wife, he ends up admitting to Isaiah that he lied. He knew where Frances was all along, and he didn't even bother to tell Isaiah at first that she was safe. He could have at least said, you know what, Frances needs a break, she's safe, don't worry about her. He could have said that in the beginning, but he led Isaiah to believe that even he didn't know where Frances was, and John Hamilton was her personal assistant that was with her daily. It's hard for normal people like you and I to even think about running our lives like that. Like, imagine your wife has a male personal assistant who is with her more than you are. It's just the way they roll. It's just how they live. It's not for me, but for people like Courtney Love, they have to feel like royalty, and that's the way she raised Frances, was you are royalty, other people are below you, and they need to be at your beck and call. That's what you pay them for. Just sliding my opinion into this situation, I can't believe that no one told this man where his wife was, and I can't believe he didn't go to the cops. Having said that, Brittany and I have started a weekly podcast that we only post on Patreon. And the very first podcast we did, we talked about how technology is starting to make people disassociate. You know, everybody has their alter egos online and they date online, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I think for celebrities, this is something that they've been accustomed to for longer than we have. I'm not going to go through all the emails and the text messages between Frances and Sam Lutfi. Sam Lutfi and Courtney Love will bring up a couple, but the reason people like Sam Lutfi can insert themselves into these celebrities' lives is because the celebrities are so disassociated. They think they're in another realm and everybody else is in a different realm, and that includes their own family members. If Frances wanted something from Courtney, she would tell Sam, and then Sam would relay it to Courtney. Then Courtney would tell Sam her response, and he would relay it to Frances. This is how piece of shit con men like Sam Lutfi ingratiate themselves into celebrities' lives. They are so used to avoiding people that they start to avoid their own family members. Let me give you an example that explains another reason why celebrities start going through personal assistants to even speak to their friends and family. When a big record company finds a gold mine like Nirvana, and I'm going to take this example from Virginia Grohl's book. When the record company finds a gold mine like Nirvana, they don't just court the band, they court the band's friends, inner circle, and their family. Virginia Grohl tells a story about her and Wendy O'Connor when Nirvana was playing Saturday Night Live. They got flown to New York. There was a chauffeur, there was catered lunches and private dinners, and she said, I could get used to this. Walk out of a store, there's the car waiting for you with the door open. So what happens to these people when they're extraordinarily famous? They get used to that kind of treatment. And then later on, maybe they're not as famous as they used to be, but they were once super famous. They still hold celebrity status and they have a steady big income coming in, like Nirvana royalties. They think, well, I don't want to go back to being a normal person where I have to drive myself and carry my own groceries and my dinner isn't ready for me when I get there. So they pay people to take on the role of what these record companies have done while courting them. It's almost like trying to get a woman to marry you. You shower her with gifts and praises and tell her she's the best thing on earth, and then people get used to that, and well, that goes away. Now I have to pay people to do that. So back to what we were originally talking about, Frances just disappears, but Isaiah stays in the home. California law says that during a dissolution, one of the married persons can stay in the marital home. Frances left. She abandoned Isaiah. Not to mention her stepdaughter, Arlo, that she told to call her mother. He stayed there. So guess what? After she's gone for so long, that home becomes his home. His name is on the deed, and Francis has abandoned the property, so it's his legal right to live in the home. Mother Courtney and personal assistant slash manager slash con man Sam Lutfi, who acts as middleman between Courtney and Francis, realize they have a big problem. Oh shit, Isaiah not only has the Curson Avenue home, he's got Kurt's guitar. It's worth mentioning that over time it became obvious to Silva that Francis wanted a divorce, and they even started having talks, amicable resolutions. Several times Francis came into the home, would remove various items. Isaiah would help her carry the items to the car, put them in the trunk. One time he even went to her new residence and unloaded stuff for her. Never once did she ask for the guitar back. Never once did she say she wanted the house back. And California law says it's his. How can we get these things back? Well, Courtney comes up with a plan to not only get the house back, get the guitar back, but to also get rid of Isaiah Silva so Francis has to pay no alimony. This came as a huge shock to me, but there is actually evidence that Francis may have been in on this plan, and that the plan may have actually been put into action as early as 6 months before Francis even left the home. Surprisingly, by Francis herself. 6 months before Francis abandoned the home, she starts messaging friends such as Lindsay Way, bassist of Mindless Self-Indulgence. We mentioned her in a previous Growing Up Francis video. She sends Lindsay a text message portraying Isaiah Silva as a suicidal man. Not just a suicidal man, but a suicidal man who is seeking a gun. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So let me put this into perspective. It's February 2016 when Francis Bean disappears. 6 months prior, in 2015, Francis Bean Cobain is messaging a friend saying that Silva is suicidal and seeking a gun. Now, there was a time when Silva was seeking a gun. He had a friend whose brother was an officer on the LAPD. He even talked about possibly purchasing a weapon from his friend's brother, the cop. But that happened 3 years in the past. A crazed Nirvana fan by the name of Matthew Galen broke into their Curson Avenue home and laid in wait in an attempt to kill Silva. No one really knows why he would want to kill Silva. He was obsessed with Kurt Cobain. For some odd reason, he felt as though Silva was somehow hurting Kurt's legacy and he was going to take care of him. Now, obviously, Matthew did not succeed and he was arrested by the LAPD, after which Silva upgraded the home security system. They put up locked gates, and he even thought about purchasing a weapon, but ultimately he decided it wasn't for them. He didn't want a weapon in their home. So Francis is actually taking something that happened in the past and misrepresenting it to her friend Lindsay as though it's occurring at the time she's messaging Lindsay, when really that's not the case at all. In May of 2016, so a couple months after Francis has disappeared, Sam Lutfi and Courtney Love hack into Isaiah Silva's iMessage account, start sending his friends messages like these ones, that he wanted to kill himself, that he was at the end of his ropes, that he had no desire to live, he was in so much pain. Does all of this sound familiar to you guys? Oops. Now, just in case any of you think this is all preposterous, it sounds too familiar, and I think that might be why a lot of people aren't paying attention to this case. It sounds silly. It's like, really? That's what happened to Kurt? Now it's going to happen to Isaiah? Do you really think they're that dumb to do it twice? Well, let me show you a little bit of background into Sam Lutfi. What you're about to see is several restraining orders from several different people who have been harassed, stalked, intimidated, assaulted by Sam Lutfi. There's one that I want to talk about in particular. Without a restraining order, I fear that there will not be sufficient law enforcement mechanisms to keep Mr. Lutfi away from me or my daughter. This is a woman named Deborah Barth. This is the statement from Nathan Barth, I'm assuming the husband. I've never actually met Mr. Osama Lutfi, aka Sam Lutfi, and have no desire to have any contact with him. Nonetheless, as detailed in the attached declaration of Samuel Barth, Mr. Lutfi has persistently attempted to contact me, repeatedly sending me unwanted, unsolicited texts, chat, and email messages. In these communications, he has expressed delusional thoughts and irrational feelings, verbally attacked and insulted me and my family, urged me to commit suicide, and directly threatened me. Mr. Lutfi apparently suffers from some sort of delusion that my family and I, particularly my mother, so Nathan is Debbie Barth's son, have purposefully tried to undermine my brother, Samuel Barth. Mr. Lutfi is obsessed with helping my brother Samuel overcome and or escape our family at any and all costs. This is a con man who finds rich people, tries to tear their families apart, and then profits from it. Listen to this one by the mother. I have never actually met Mr. Osama Lutfi and have no desire to have any contact with him. Now, it goes on to say pretty much the same thing, but check this out. Mr. Lutfi has persistently stalked and harassed me, repeatedly calling and sending my family, my friends, and me unwanted and unsolicited text, chat, and email messages. Most disturbing of all, in these communications, he has expressed delusional thoughts and irrational feelings, verbally attacked and threatened me, and even tried to disrupt my relationship with my minor daughter, offering her a cell phone she could use to avoid my supervision. This man is a predator, a stalker. He preys on families that are going through hard times, families who have money, and he will even manipulate underage children, because teenagers are all about defying their parents anyway, right? Well, mom won't let me do this, dad won't let me do this. He's trying to give an underage girl a cell phone so she can contact him, a like 40-something-year-old man, without her parents knowing. I'm not going to go through all of his criminal history. We would be here all day. This dude has numerous restraining orders, numerous charges. What he did to Isaiah is absolutely no shocking surprise. He gets protected by people like Courtney Love and her attorneys, which I told you guys in a previous video. Marc Gans was a long-term attorney of Courtney Love. Marc Gans was paid for by Courtney Love to defend Sam Lutfi against the Spears family, Britney Spears. This guy should have been in prison a long time ago. He's a predator. What kind of grown man tries to interrupt a mother-daughter relationship and give an underage girl a cell phone? That shit is disgusting. And I know I said it at the beginning of the video. I said not even a professional could 100% accurately profile Kurt Cobain unless they had access to his friends and family. But do any of you think Kurt Cobain, if he were alive, do you think Kurt Cobain would let Sam Lutfi near his baby girl, Frances? Do you think he would let Sam Lutfi within 100 yards of Frances? Hell no. Her mother, Courtney Love, not only let Sam Lutfi into her daughter's life, she encouraged Frances to trust and befriend him. Guess what Sam did? He gave Frances a cell phone that her husband Isaiah didn't know about. He even opened up a Gmail account for her that Isaiah didn't know about. He inserts himself into the lives of people who don't know how to communicate with each other, pretends to be a mediator, and plays both sides. He manipulates both of them. If you read through a lot of his emails with Frances and Courtney, he's actually trying to get them upset at each other. He's playing this role of, if he's talking to Frances, he takes Frances's side and says it's Courtney's fault. If he's talking to Courtney, he takes Courtney's side and says it's Frances's fault. He's a piece of shit con man.